How to sell your house in 10 steps. This is a plan. This is the plan to sell your house in any location, any market conditions, anytime, anywhere, to get the best results possible, which does not just mean the highest fair market value possible, but also the best experience dealing with any factors that arise that you cannot control, and of course, taking good control of the ones you can. The process is the same, no matter what. Ignore all the tricks, all of the gimmicks, all of the crazy promises that you hear in the marketplace from agents and others. There is a no-nonsense, cut to the chase, 10-step process to follow to get the best results. So we're going to go over that at a high level today. In subsequent videos, I'll go into some of the individual steps in more detail. But today, let's just cover them at the highest level so you know what the 10 steps are, and so that you can start to understand that there's no magic here, there's no mystery. You just have to do the work, do the right things, and you will get the results that you need in the end, the best results possible. Okay, step number one. Step number one is to decide whether or not you want to hire someone to represent you in selling your house. To hire or not to hire. Why is this step number one? It's step number one because, as you'll see when we go through steps 2 through 10, there's a lot of value and purpose behind hiring a representative. There's a lot they'll bring to the table for steps 2 through 10 that if you don't hire them at the beginning, you're defeating the purpose by bumbling through, or even doing a decent job yourself, going through steps 2 through 10 or 2 through 7 and then deciding, you know what, I'm out of my element here, I need some help. Well, the horse is already out of the barn. You've set yourself back by not getting someone on board right from the beginning who's going to add value through all those steps. Now, if you feel you can manage all of those steps yourself, which we're going to go through, and it's very possible you can, then you're not going to need to hire someone to represent you, to help you from the beginning. But if you are going to hire someone, the beginning is the time to do it. Step number 2, analyze the market. Before you even analyze your property and your circumstances, you need to understand what's going on in the market, because the decisions that you make throughout the rest of the steps, the way you set things up, is going to depend on market conditions. In a super strong seller's market, for example, you will be engineering things toward a competitive buying process. But in a super strong buyer's market, you will be engineering things to account for the fact that there are only so many buyers out there who will be interested, willing, and able to buy your house. And the steps you're going to take are going to be very different because of that. So analyzing the market is step number 2. If you're going to do that yourself, you can rely on some data sources. You can access quite a bit of MLS data without having inside access to MLS. You go to realtor.ca and you do a bunch of searching around at properties in your area that have sold. Read the news, read news reports, read realtor blogs, read Statistics Canada, CMHC, all of these sources to figure out what is the market like right now as I head out on this journey. You can learn that yourself. If you decided in step 1 to hire an agent, then your agent is going to should already understand the market very, very well. They're working in it on a daily basis, and they should be able to come to the table and right off the bat give you a very good understanding of market conditions, how buyers are behaving, how sellers are behaving, how long is it taking to sell properties, what kind of properties are selling better than others, what your competition's like at a high level, what the in and out migration from your area is. All of these market factors, your agent should come to the table with most of that information for you. Generalized information, not specific to your property. So you will either be analyzing data sources on your own, or your agent will be bringing that to the table so that you have a good foundational understanding of the market that you're playing in before you start. Step number 3, document your objectives, or at least understand your objectives. Why are you selling? Do you have a hard timeline? You need to be out by a certain date. Can you afford to sell? How much equity do you have in your property? There can be circumstances where you can't actually afford to sell and you're better off not selling. Maybe rent the property out if you need to move. There are other options, but determine whether you can actually afford to sell. And do you plan to buy another property after you sell or before you sell? Understanding what your objectives are helps you make the correct decisions in steps 4 through 10 to get the best results. So if you are managing the process yourself, you will document your objectives and then think about what you will need to do in the remaining steps based on your objectives and to achieve your objectives. If you need to sell really fast, maybe you need to price it a lot lower than you hoped. If you have lots of time, maybe you don't even want to put it on the market yet. Or maybe it will take lots of time. You should put it on now. These are the kinds of decisions that you'll make based on your objectives. If you have decided to hire someone to help you, your agent is going to ask you all of these questions and document that themselves to help them devise the best plan to achieve what you're trying to achieve. Step number 4, assess your property's infrastructure. What needs to be fixed, replaced, or updated? So infrastructure means, the foundation, the electrical, the plumbing, the windows, the roof, the air conditioning, the furnace, things that are the infrastructure of the property that buyers, when they're purchasing, the vast majority of buyers want to buy a property that does not really have a lot of problems. It doesn't have things that need to be repaired. The bone, what we used to call good bones. Buyers, almost all, more than 95%. I'm pulling that number out of a hat, but it's based on a lot of experience. And I don't think many people would dispute it. At least 95% of buyers want to be able to move into the house, and even if it's going to require some redecorating, they want the bones of the house, the infrastructure, to be in good condition. A good agent, if you've decided to hire one, will be able to run through that with you. They'll come to your home, they'll walk through the whole property, take notes, and tell you, look, you should fix this, replace that, repair this, because you don't want to hit the market with a property that is just going to meet with all kinds of resistance because it needs so many repairs, or worse, get partway through the process, get it conditionally sold, and during an inspection find all these infrastructure problems, and then the people back out or they renegotiate. If you are not that familiar with the infrastructure of the property and you've decided not to hire an agent, you could hire an appraiser or a home inspector to help you discover what are the infrastructure needs, immediate needs of the house, and address those. Step number 5 is to assess the property's cosmetic appeal. So we've dealt with the infrastructure. Well, now we come to the cosmetics. Is the kitchen so icky that no one's going to want to use it? Or is the kitchen just dated but in really great shape and people won't have a problem? Some buyers won't have a problem using it until maybe they can update it in the future. You need to assess the cosmetic appeal of your house. Flooring, paint, trim, bathrooms, kitchens, fixtures, light fixtures, electrical devices, wiring devices like switches and plugs, the exterior, the pathways, the fencing, the fencing could be considered potentially infrastructure. It depends on the property. You need to understand the level of cosmetic appeal of your house. What is it about your house that stands out and is exceptional? What is it that's okay, and what is it that's most buyers are going to want to change, and are there other things that are completely turn-offs for people that are actually going to inhibit the sale? Generally, you don't want to spend a lot of money cosmetically updating a property just to sell it, but you also don't want to put a property on the market with things that could be very inexpensively enhanced to achieve massive ROI. Spend $1, make $1,000. So if you've brought in an agent to represent you and manage the process, they should be bringing in a designer or a stager to help with assessing the cosmetic appeal of the house and making a plan. If you have not hired an agent, if you're managing things yourself, Maybe you're really good at assessing cosmetic appeal. Some homeowners are. You need to remember to stay objective and not cater to your own preferences, but rather understand what 95% of buyers want in the current market in a property like yours, in a location like yours. You could also just hire a designer, an interior designer, or a stager to help you make this assessment. Step number 6, assess market value of your home. It is going to be important to price the property, and so you need to have an understanding of the market value of your house. And it might also be important for you to know that, relating back to the question we had earlier on, and you're setting your objectives about whether you can afford to sell the house. So assessing market value is obviously crucial. It's interesting sometimes when I meet with sellers for the very initial consultation, where I'll be explaining to them these 10 steps and how I plan to project manage everything. They will sometimes tell me that another agent's been in and told them their house is worth X. And I always find that fascinating. I say, really? That's interesting. So did they do a full assessment of the property, or they right off the bat, this was step 1, they knew what the value of the property was, even before you've decided what changes you're going to make to the property? So assessing market value is not something you can do right off the bat, at least not very accurately. Certainly you can get a rough idea of the range of value of the property, but without doing a thorough analysis, you're not going to have a very accurate understanding of what it's probably worth. That could set you up for some unfortunate surprises down the road. So an agent, if you've decided to hire one, is going to do a comprehensive comparative market analysis. That is not just a matter of printing off 3 or 4 MLS sheets from the most recent sales right in your neighborhood and handing them to you and going, here you go, here's the 4 most recent sales, look what they sold for. Therefore yours is worth, somewhere in there. It should be way more detailed than that. If the analysis that you get from your agent explaining what the likely market value of your property is does not include, evidence of the square footage of the comparable properties via MPAC reports or floor plans or something else, if it does not include either a detailed in-person discussion about the implications of all of the trade-offs between your house and the other properties that have recently sold, or a written report that goes point by point, detail by detail, explaining why that other house is worth more because it has a 2-car garage, yours has a 1-car garage, that house has a 3-piece ensuite bath, yours has a 2-piece, etc., etc. If you don't have a report that explains all those differences and derives the value of your property, then you're being shortchanged. I don't care how long an agent's been in the business. I've encountered enough cases where I have done a detailed analysis and figured a property is worth X, and I'm told that another agent said, or they've said directly to me, no, it's only worth Y, or it's worth Z, which is a lot more than X. And it turns out, that they are making these claims just based on having, been in a lot of houses in the neighborhood, and they really know their houses. Well, if you don't go and look at the data, then you can't be sure, because things change fast. Look at what's gone on this year. Back in February, a house might have been worth $800,000. Now it's worth $625,000. Things change. You have to look at the data, no matter how many houses you've been in, how many houses you've sold. So you should be getting from your agent a very detailed report with current analysis of current data showing what the data suggests the property is worth. Now, no one is perfect in this, and it's a combination of math and science and art and luck, but you still need a good starting point, and the starting point needs to be based on data, so that as you learn more through the process, if things change, you can adjust accordingly and not just be flying by the seat of your pants. Now, if you decided in step 1 that you want to manage the process yourself and not hire an agent, you still need to be able to assess market value. So there are a couple of ways you could do that. There are websites now where you can fairly easily access or fairly comprehensively access sold prices of properties in your area, so that you can perform some comparative analysis on your own. You can also go to the land registry and pull property values. If maybe there was a private sale across the street and you don't know what it went for, you can go to the land registry office and get the price of that. You could also hire an appraiser or hire 3 appraisers. I know, you're spending money on appraisers, but if you've decided not to pay a bunch of money to someone to manage the process for you, take a little bit of money, hire an appraiser or 2, get your property appraised. Now you'll have a really good idea what it's worth, because they're going to do the kind of detail analysis that I was just talking to you about. Okay, step number 7, draft your project plan. Project plan? Yes, that's right, project plan. You see, if you decided in step number 1 to hire someone to represent you, they have 2 main jobs. One is represent your best interests in negotiations and in getting you through the conditional period and all this stuff. But number 2 is acting as a project manager. That's really what a realtor is, a project manager, not a salesperson. It used to be, in 1965, that before the internet, buyers wouldn't know about your house if your real estate agent didn't go out and actively sell it to buyers, either hold open houses or advertise in the newspaper or call people and say, hey, I got this great new house on the market, come see it. Nowadays, your house is going to be plastered all over the internet. Your real estate agent isn't selling your house. They're representing you, and they are devising and managing the project plan to best present and market your house so that the maximum number of buyers will be interested and want to pay the most for it. That's very different than going out and selling your house for you. So any language you hear about, or about, I'm the one who can sell your house, you need to think twice about hiring someone like that. What you want is a really good project manager who understands marketing and all the other aspects as well. So draft your project plan. You need a designer, a stager. You need trades potentially to do some of the repairs if you decided that there was infrastructure that needed to be updated. You need to know what closing date you're aiming for, work back in your planning so that the timing of hitting the market, having showings, receiving offers, negotiating, conditional period, maybe going through that again, you have the correct amount of time to reach your closing date. What flexibility do you have? Figuring that out, figuring out contingencies, and understanding how long it will take to sell in current market conditions. You need a plan. This is not going to be like a detailed Microsoft project plan for building, a bridge across the Ottawa River, but where different suppliers are coming in on different days with different parts of wiring and cabling and conduit and rebar, and it's not that level of detail, but it's still a plan that has key milestones in it that have to all align if you don't want to be owning 2 homes or out of a home for a period of weeks. And to make sure you do things in the right order so that when buyers come to see the property, they are seeing it in its best light from day one and in a position to make an offer that you can actually act on from day one. Step number 8. Step number 8 really is executing the 5 Ps of property marketing that I talk about on my website and that I developed when I got into the business. When I first started out in real estate, I was kind of surprised that the process was more about attracting clients so that you can then stick signs on lawns and hope for the best. And I just was a little bit surprised that there wasn't more discipline in the process of buying and selling homes. And things have changed a lot. The industry has gotten a lot better. Step number 8 is executing the 5 Ps of property marketing. So preparing, presenting, positioning, pricing, and promoting the property. You need to actually run through all of that. So implementing the infrastructure work, implementing any design and staging work, doing all the photography and video, building websites or web presence, writing the ad copy, positioning the property to attract the buyers who are most likely to, sign an offer when they see the property. There is no point in attracting 50 buyers to your house, none of whom will want it. You're better off attracting 3 buyers and they all want it. So that's about positioning. Strategic pricing, setting up your SEO profiles, a plan to drive the correct traffic to your property in its online presence, and figuring out where it's going to be placed. All that, the detailed marketing plan, executing all of that is step number 8. If you've decided in step number 1 to hire someone to project plan the sale of your house for you, hire a realtor, they will have their method, their plan for marketing the property, and you'll execute that. They'll explain it all to you, and you walk through that. If you don't have that, you'll have to devise that on your own. You could read a bunch of stuff online to understand how, what the best practices are and what people do to achieve good results in marketing a property. Or perhaps you're a marketing executive or worker, and you already know how to market things, and you think you know a lot about houses and real estate, and you could just apply your own plan. One way or another, you need to prepare, present, position, price, and promote the property to get it sold. Step number 9. Step number 9 is managing the process now that the property is active on the market. So you're managing showings, online activity, feedback, fielding requests for information, fine-tuning based on the feedback and the response that the market is giving you to your property, and managing offers, negotiations, and the offer process, and understanding the legal implications and requirements so you don't get yourself in trouble throughout the process of actually engaging with a buyer. That is step number 9. Step number 10 is managing the conditional period and closing. So once you have a conditional sale of your property, if you don't get a firm sale, you need to manage the buyer or the buyer's agent and your side of things through that process, the conditional period. Maybe they find issues during an inspection, maybe they have problems with their financing, maybe they need more information on zoning, whatever it is, you need to understand how to work through the conditional period to get the conditions cleared so that you can then be in a position to get the lawyers involved and work toward closing day. From the end of removing conditions to closing day, there can still be issues. And even in a firm agreement of purchase and sale where there are no conditions, you can have issues to deal with between the sale and closing. And some of those issues can sometimes seem like things that should have been conditions, like, the buyer has suddenly discovered they can't get the financing. Maybe they can't get it because they forgot to disclose to their lender that they have this big loan somewhere. Maybe they had sold their property in Quebec and were counting on the proceeds of that to buy your house, but it turns out that in the wild, wild west of Quebec real estate, the buyer is now delaying the closing for a month and they can't do anything about it, so they're not going to have the money on time to close on your property. All kinds of things can happen, and you need to understand how to manage all of that, and what your options are, how to get yourself through to a successful conclusion. I have talked a mile a minute to try and get you through the 10 steps to sell your house. You can see that we're not talking about tricks and gimmicks, and we are talking about a process that works no matter your circumstances, because the circumstances get dealt with along the way, and by planning and preparing and managing the process from beginning to end, you'll get the best result possible. Does that always mean your house will sell in 2 days for the highest price in the neighborhood ever to the best possible buyer and it closes on exactly the date you want? No, doesn't mean that. Sometimes the best you can do with a property that has lots of issues in a market that's very difficult is to actually manage to get it sold at a reasonably fair price in a reasonable amount of time and not end up with all kinds of legal problems and constantly going back to the table and fixing things and dealing with hassles. Sometimes that's the best you can do. Other times the best you can do is a super high price in a very short period of time. And if that's the case, you want to make sure you're getting the best super high price in the shortest or the time that you precisely want. That has to be managed as well. Even in the crazy sellers market we had in 2020 and 2021, there were so many times when I was working with a buyer and I saw a seller leave money on the table by not following best practices. Sure, they got more than asking, way more than asking, but they could have had even more if they not excluded buyers intentionally or unintentionally because of either the expediency of their agent or their own lack of understanding of the process. So, have you got all that? Questions? Write them down below. You kind of like this concept of me going through how things actually work in real estate? Well, give me a like, or better yet, hit that subscribe button. See you in the next video.